Introduction to Power BI. In the previous session, we completed establishing a relationship between our dimension tables and the fact population table. And we also learned about, the other properties of a relationship, such as the cross filter direction and the active properties, right? So the cross filter direction is nothing but the direction of the relationship, meaning which table has access to information present in which table. And the active properties is basically an option that allows the user to simply activate or deactivate a relationship without actually deleting it if not needed, right? So these are the concepts that we learned in the previous session, and in today's session we will be learning about the DAX functions and a little bit about M language. Okay, so so today's session will be all about applying calculations, to our data set or to our tables. And okay, let me just share my screen first. Okay, so yeah. So in the previous session, we basically completed establishing the relationships, right? One-to-many relationship between fact population and the different dimension tables. And in today's class, we'll be learning how to, use the DAX language to apply calculations, right? So when you think of applying calculations, it always means you need to have some kind of a language, right? So be it any platform. If you want to apply calculations, if you want to perform analytical calculations, it always means that you need to have some kind of language, right? That you need to, work for applying these calculations. And Power BI Desktop comes with two different languages. So one is the M language and the other is the DAX language. Okay, so to explain the difference between M language and DAX language, and also the features of DAX language, I have a small presentation. So let me just open the presentation. Yeah. So this slide explains the difference between the M language and DAX language. Now coming to M language, we have already used M language, but indirectly, right? So whatever steps that we applied in Power Query Editor, they're all based on M language, right? So, where we removed rows, where we removed columns, where we duplicated the columns, where we removed duplicates, right? So whatever step that we applied in M language, they were all based on, sorry, but whatever steps that we applied in the Power Query Editor, they were all based on M language, right? So if we go back to Power Query Editor, okay, so if we go back to Power Query Editor, the M language is the one present in the formula bar here. You can see the formula bar here, right? So I have highlighted the formula bar, right? So this is basically the M language, right? And you can see that in the formula bar, the last two applied steps will be available here, right? In the last two applied steps. So right now we are in the dim age table. The last two applied steps were renamed columns and reordered columns. And that is what you can see here, right? Reordered columns and renamed columns. So by default, the formula bar displays only the last two applied steps in M language syntax. Okay, this is the M language syntax here. Okay, now if you want to view all the applied steps that we have taken in M language syntax, in the home menu, you can click on advanced editor. Okay, you can click on advanced editor. Could everyone please mute their mics? I'm able to hear some noise. Okay, thank you. So you can click on advanced editor and you'll see all the steps that we have taken in the form of M language, right? So this is the M language in Power BI. Okay. Now the advantage of using Power Query Editor is that we did not have to code any of these formula here, right? For example, when we unpivoted the column here, this is the formula for unpivoting a particular column, right? Unpivoted columns equals table dot unpivoted other columns rounded off, all these, syntax. We didn't have to code any of these, right? So this is the advantage of using Power Query Editor, right? You don't have to code anything. Rather, you just have to click on, buttons, and Power BI will do the work for you, right? Even for a simple, change the data type of a particular column here, right? You have to code all these things, right? Instead, what we did, we just clicked on the data type button and changed the data type of a particular column, right? So this is basically the M language here, right? Whatever you're seeing on the screen, this is called as M language. Okay, so whatever steps that we applied in Power Query Editor, they are all based on a language called as M language. Okay, and in today's class, we will learn a little bit about M language. Okay, how exactly we can work with M language. Okay, and then we'll move on to DAX language. Okay, but our focus will be towards DAX language, but let us learn a little bit about M language as well. How exactly M language can be used. Okay, so in our case, we'll be working with the dim age table. Okay, let us take a couple of minutes to learn how to use M language. Okay, now please make sure to be in dim age table. And let's say you want to combine the values present in age group and category columns. Okay, by combine, I mean you will be concatenating these two text columns. Okay, now when I say concatenate, it means to combine or to merge or to add up. Okay, so we'll be combining the values present in age group and category column and creating a new column for that. Okay, and that new column will have the values, so like 0-4 baby, 5-9 child, 10-14 child, and so on. So we'll be concatenating these two columns, and concatenating always means it is the combination of values present in text columns. Okay, you can't concatenate columns that are of the numeric data type. It has to be text data type columns. Okay, otherwise the concatenation will not work. And why would you combine numeric values, right? You would rather perform some mathematical operations on numeric data type columns, right? So when you have text data type columns, then the concatenation works. And let's say your task is to combine the values present in age group and category column. Now there is no one button that basically combines the values present in age group and category column. You have to use the M language for that purpose. Okay, when you want to apply calculations or when you want to merge values present in two columns, you have to apply the M language. There is no single button where you can combine the values present in two text columns. Okay, now to create the new column, which is the combination of age group and category columns, you have to go to add column and select the second option that says custom column. Okay, so please select custom column. So here first you have to specify the column of the new name. So let us call this column M age dash combined. Okay, the reason why I have named this is because we are using M language and we are in the dim age table and we are combining some columns here. Okay, I mean you can name it whatever you want. Okay, but I have named this so that you know what exactly we have done. So basically we have used M language where we are combining columns in the dim age table, and here you have to specify the formula for combination of two columns, or basically to combine two columns. Now when I say concatenation, it means that you are combining the values present in two text columns. So right away, you can see that there is a list of available columns in the dim age table, right? So there are two ways to include a column in our formula. You can either double click on the age group column, okay, and that column will be selected in the formula, or you can click on the column which you want to combine and click on insert. Okay, now in our formula we have not mentioned any operator that allows these columns to be combined, right? So we have just specified the names of the columns, but nowhere have we specified that we will be combining the values present in age group and category column. Now in Power BI desktop, even in M language and in M language syntax, the operator or basically the formula for concatenation is the AND symbol. Okay, the ampersand symbol. Okay, so right now in M language, we are combining age group and category columns, and the operator or basically the formula for concatenation in M language is the AND symbol here. Okay, so now we have named our new column and we are combining the values present in age group and category column using the text concatenation operator, that is AND here. Okay, that is AND symbol. Now you can go ahead and click on OK. So now the new column will be created where the values will be a combination of the values present in age group and category column, right? 0-4 baby, 5-9 child, 10-14 child, and so on. So this is basically how you can use M language in Power Query Editor. Okay, so this is just for learning purpose. Okay, we'll not be using M language extensively, but it's better to know how to use M language, right? So let's wait for the column to be created. Yeah. Now we can see M age combined column has been created where the values of age group and category columns are combined right now. And you can see that there is no space here, right? There is no space between 0-4 and baby, 5-9 and child, right? There is no space here. Now, how can we add a space when we are combining values? Let us go back to the configuration window. So you can click on the gear wheel icon of the added custom applied step here. Okay, you can click on this gear wheel icon here and you'll be taken to the configuration window of the custom column option. Okay, now here we have just specified the concatenation operator here where the values of age group and category column will be combined. But how to add a space between the values? To add a space between the values, you have to specify the space inside double quotes. Okay, so after the ampersand symbol, type double quotes, then space, then double quotes. Okay, and then another ampersand symbol. So the reason why we are including two ampersand symbols or two AND symbols is because the first AND symbol is basically to combine the values in the age group column and the space. Okay, and the second ampersand symbol is to basically combine the space and the category column values. Okay, so that is why we have included two ampersand symbols here. One is to combine the space and the age group column, and the second ampersand symbol is to combine the space and the category column values. Okay, and we also have a confirmation saying no syntax errors have been detected. Okay, if there are any syntax errors, it will be shown. Okay, if there are any errors or if there are any mistakes in our formula. Okay, now we have also added a space, right? So that now our results will be 0-4 space baby, 5-9 space child, 15-19 space teenager, and so on. Okay, now I can go ahead and click on OK. Now, once the results are processed, you can see there will be a space between the values, right? 0-4 space baby.
Anaga, sorry, I was on a call. What are we looking at today?
We are looking at the different languages, in Power BI desktop. That is the M language and DAX.
Yesterday you had said that today we'll start with DAX.
Yeah. So there are two languages in Power BI desktop. So just for learning purpose, I was explaining about M language, but the rest of the session and tomorrow's session will be focused towards DAX. Okay. So because there are two languages, it is important to learn a little bit about the other language as well, right? Because if someone asks you what is the other language other than DAX, you should be able to answer that, right?
What is the second one?
M language. Okay, and M language is basically the language used in Power Query Editor, right? So whatever steps that we applied in
Karthik, if you're in call now, you just look at this recording session, Karthik. We are all waiting here and we are, going through the session. Again, so
it is loading here. It is just loading. So in the meantime, I was asking.
Okay, so now that we have applied a space, right, between the values of age group and category column, right? So that is how you can add a space. Now this is just for example, okay, how M language works, but we'll be focusing only on DAX language, okay? Because the advantage of Power Query Editor is that we don't have to code anything, right? So but just for learning purpose, I just showed you how M language works, okay? So this is basically how M language works. Okay, now what we can do, we can also change the data type of the new column that we created, right? So now right now it is this alphanumeric, or basically this undeterministic data type, right? Now we can go ahead and change it to text. Okay, so please change the data type of M age combined, or basically the new column that we created, to text data type. Okay, now once this process is complete, we can click on close and apply, and we'll begin with DAX language. Okay, so we'll go back to the presentation, and yeah, I think in the meantime, we can go back to the presentation, right? Because let it load here. Okay, so let us go back to the presentation. Yeah, so basically this is the difference between M language and DAX language, right? In M language, it is present in the Power Query formula language, right? So that is what we saw, right? M language is basically the syntax present in the formula bar of the Power Query editor, and it is usually used for data transformation and data preparation. And that is what we did also, right? So Power Query Editor, we used it for cleaning our data, or transforming our data, or basically preparing our data. And typically M language is used before you create and develop a data model. Okay, and that is what we did also, right? Power Query Editor was used before we created and developed the data model, right? Data model meaning where we applied the multidimensional star schema. So this is basically where what exactly M language is and where exactly M language is used. Now coming to DAX. So DAX means data analysis expressions. Okay, it is the other language used in Power BI desktop. Okay, and DAX language is used for applying analytical data calculations. Okay, when you want to create new column or a new measure, okay, you can use DAX. And DAX functions. So functions means the formulas, right? So what you want to calculate, that is called as functions. So these DAX functions are very, very similar to the Excel functions. Okay, so if you have experience with using Microsoft Excel functions or Microsoft Excel formulae, it is very, very similar to the DAX functions. Okay, I mean, we will see how it is similar to the Excel functions. In DAX functions, in the application part, it is typically used to create insights. Now, what do I mean by create insights? Now, when you create new columns or when you create new measures, you are basically extracting more information from your data, right? So let's say you have unit price and the total number of units. Okay, you have two: unit price and total number of units. You can calculate the total price, right? And you are deriving insight, or where you're extracting more information from your data. And that is what you do when you apply analytical data calculations using DAX. You are creating insights, or basically you are extracting more information from your data. And typically DAX is used when after, or basically inside the data model, right? So right now we have created our data model. We have developed our data model using the multidimensional star schema. So after you create the data model, you will use the DAX functions, or you will use the DAX language. Okay, so this is the difference between M language and DAX language. So M language is used before you create a data model, and DAX language is used after you create a data model. And typically M language is used for data transformation and data preparation, whereas DAX language is used for creating insights and analytical data calculations. Okay, so this is a brief description of the M language and DAX language. So for today and tomorrow's session, we will focus on DAX language. Okay, now coming to what we are going to learn in DAX. So we are going to first of all learn the basics of DAX, such as the DAX reference, syntax, data types, operators, and functions. Now we are not going to focus on the advanced concepts, right? Because since the scope of this course is focused towards, the introductory parts, or basically the fundamentals of Power BI, we are not going to focus on the advanced DAX concepts that as such as DAX statements or DAX queries. Now let us first focus on the basics of DAX, okay? Because if you do not have the fundamentals clear, or if you do not have the foundation concepts clear, then you'll not be able to focus on, or you'll not be able to learn the advanced concepts properly. Okay, but let us focus on the DAX basics first. Okay, now the DAX reference. The DAX reference is basically the official documentation from Microsoft to understand all about DAX. Okay, so I'm going to show you how you can access this. So basically, this is the web link for accessing the DAX reference. Okay, I think I'm not able to copy this. Anyway, you can open your browser. Okay, you can open your browser and Google DAX reference. Okay, you can just Google DAX reference and select the first link here. Okay, and click on the first link. So it will take you to the DAX reference here, DAX function reference. So this provides you a detailed information all about DAX, right? So we have over 250 functions that you can use. By functions, I mean in the left tab, you can see the functions here, right? Aggregate functions, date and time functions, filter functions, mathematics and trigonometry functions, statistical functions. There are all these functions that you can use to calculate, right, in DAX language. Now, obviously, we are not going to cover all of them, because in aggregation functions alone, you have all these functions, right? So one, we don't have time, and the other, you don't have to learn all functions, because we are going to cover the most frequently used or the most commonly used functions. Now, if there is a specific requirement, you can refer to the DAX function reference. Okay, you can come here and you can search which function you want to use or which function you want to learn. Okay, so this is the first, basically the first feature of DAX language, where you get an official documentation, right, where you can learn all about DAX, including the syntax, parameters, return values, and so on. Okay, so this is basically the summary of the core logic of how DAX works. Okay, if you want to learn all about DAX, you can visit this link here. Okay, which is called as the DAX reference or the DAX function reference. Okay, let me do one thing. I'll post it in the chat also, this particular web link here. Yeah, okay. Now coming back to the presentation. So DAX reference is basically the summary of the core logic of how DAX works, and also it is the official documentation to understand all about the DAX functions. Okay. Then we will also learn about the syntax, right? So the syntax means what does a DAX formula look like? How can we create such a formula, and what data can be added to such a DAX formula? And then we will learn about the data types, or what are the different types of data types that can work or that can be used in the DAX language, and the operators, right? What are the different operators? It can be mathematical, logical, comparison, right? What are the different types of operators that can be used in DAX language? And finally, we are going to look at the functions, right? So functions mean what calculations do you want to perform, right? Whether you want to add, whether you want to subtract, whether you want to concatenate, right? These are all we are going to learn the different functions that you can use in DAX. Okay. Now we have looked at the DAX reference. It is nothing but the official documentation provided by Microsoft that explains all about the DAX functions. Okay. Now let us come to the syntax. Okay. Now the core DAX syntax looks like this. Okay, where it has 4 different parts. This is the formula. Okay, this is an example formula here. But in this slide, I'm going to explain the different parts of a DAX formula. Okay, so the first part is basically the name of the formula or the name of the column we are going to create. Okay, Now, don't focus on these aspects here, capital letters, space. Now, it is just explaining the features of this particular formula here. In the formula name here, you have capital letters and you also have a space between the total and population. That is what it is saying. You can have it in any format you want. Okay, you can have capital letters, you can have small letters, you can choose, there can be space or there may not be a space. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, now the first part is basically the name of the formula or the column name, okay, of the new column. Okay, then comes the equal symbol here. Okay, now after the equal symbol, you specify the DAX function. So the DAX function is nothing but what you want to calculate, right? Do you want to calculate the sum? Do you want to calculate the average? Or do you want to calculate some other thing? Okay, so after you specify the name of the column or basically the name of the formula, you specify the DAX function. And in our case, we are using the sum function here. This is just an example. Okay, after the DAX function, you specify the table reference. Okay, so basically, which table are you utilizing in your formula? Then after you specify the table, you specify the column reference, right? So on which column are you applying the formula? So here we are applying the sum function. Okay, we are applying the sum function on the column population count, which is present in the table fact population. Okay, this is how you should read the formula, right? We are applying the sum function. Sum means you're calculating the total, right? So we are calculating the total population where we are applying the sum function on the column population count, and this particular column is present in the fact population table. Now, please remember this. Whenever you specify the column reference in a DAX syntax or in a DAX formula, you have to mention it in square brackets. Okay, it is a rule. Okay, whenever you mention any column name in a DAX formula or in a DAX syntax, you have to specify it inside square brackets. Okay, then it is advised to use this particular syntax here. Okay, it is not mandatory to use this particular formula, but it is advised. But Power BI advises users to use this formula because it looks more structured, right? It looks more structured, it looks more organized. Whenever another user looks at your formula, right, or looks at your syntax, that particular person should not get confused, right? So that is why you have to specify it in this particular format where you specify the name of the formula or the name of the column you are going to create. Then you specify the DAX function, then you specify the table reference and then the column reference. Now it is not mandatory to always use the table reference, right? Because I will show you how you can avoid using this table reference, but it is advised to use this particular format because now let's say I don't know what you are creating or I don't know which formula you are using. Now let's say you are using this particular formula. Now, as soon as I see this, I'm going to know that you're creating a column called as total population. So to create something called as total, you are using the sum function and you are using the sum function on the population count, which is present in the fact population table. So I mean, I'm not going to get confused, right? So if I do not specify the table reference, I might get confused, right? So from which table did this population count come from? Okay. So to avoid these confusions or to basically to give more clarity to your formula or to, to structure your formula, you can make, it is advisable to use this particular syntax. Okay. Again, this is not mandatory, but it is suggested that you use this syntax. Okay. So that if anyone looks at your formula, he or she should not get confused. Okay. Could everyone please mute their mics? I'm able to hear some noise. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Now coming to the operators, sorry, the data types. Okay, the different data types, that can be used in DAX. So these are the different data types, and we have already looked at pretty much most of them, right? We have worked with the text data type, numeric data type, date time, and also the blank values. All we have left out is with the Boolean and the currency. Now let us go one by one. Now the text data type, we have already covered it. This is basically, the letters or the symbols. Then we have also looked at the numeric data type, both whole number as well as decimal numbers. then the Boolean data type. So the Boolean data type, the values will be either true or false. Okay, so those are the only values that you can specify in a column which is of the data type Boolean. Okay, then comes the date time data type. You already looked at that. Then DAX can also work with data types, can also work with currency data type, rupees, dollars, rubles, euros. If you have data in the form of a currency, you can also work, DAX can also work with columns that are of the data type currency. And then coming to the last data type, the blank data type, right? If you don't have any data, DAX can also work with blank data as well. Okay. Now, excuse me, guys, just give me a minute. Yeah. So basically, these are the core data types that DAX ships with, or the data types that DAX language can interact with. Okay, these are the 6 data types: text, numeric, Boolean, date, time, currency, and blank. Okay, so these are the different data types that we can work in DAX language. Now coming to operators. So what exactly do I mean by operators? So operators helps us to perform calculations and also to combine information from different columns. Right? If I want to add values present in 2 columns, I can use the arithmetic operator plus. Right? If I want to compare, let's say I want to compare one value present in one column with another value present in another column. I want to compare if it is less than or greater than. I can use the comparison operator. Right? So coming to arithmetic operators, right? You have the addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and this is the power 2 symbol, right? 2 power 3. How can you write 2 power 3 in DAX language? You can use this symbol here, right? You can use this symbol here. This is the power 2 symbol. Okay. Then comes the comparison operators. Now, a small assignment for you guys. Okay, I want you to find out the difference between this simple equal operator and the strict equal operator. Now, this is a single equal, or in other words, this is called as a simple equal, and this is called as a strict equal operator, where you have 2 equal symbols. Okay, now I'm going to type it in the chat. Okay, this is the assignment for you guys today. Okay, what is the difference between simple or single equal operator, that is just one equal sign, and strict? Okay, this is called as a strict equal operator, that is 2 equal symbols. Okay, this is the assignment for you guys today. You have to find out the difference between the simple or single equal operator and strict equal operator. Okay, these are comparison operators. Okay, but you have to tell me the difference. Okay, you have time till tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow, before tomorrow's session, or in tomorrow's session, someone has to tell me the difference between this single or simple equal operator and the strict equal operator. Now, apart from these two, we have seen pretty much all of them, right? Where you have the greater than. I have not included the less than because it is obvious, right? So less than or greater than, or even less than, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. Now, what is this last symbol here, where you have the less than and greater than? So in Power BI, and to be more specific in DAX, this symbol is the not equal to operator. Okay, this symbol is the not equal operator. Okay, let me just type it also this. So this is the not equal operator. Okay, this is the not equal operator in DAX language. Okay, now coming to logical operators, you have the double ampersand symbol. This is called as a double pipe operator. Okay, where you have 2 straight lines. This is called as a double pipe operator, and the in operator. Now let us learn a little bit about these 3 operators. Okay, now coming to the double ampersand symbol, or the double ampersand operator. So what is this double ampersand operator? This is nothing but the and, okay, A and D keyword. So let's say you are specifying two conditions. Okay. Let's say you are specifying two conditions and you want the result to populate only when the two conditions are met. Okay. If only when the two conditions are met, you will see the result. Now to specify the two conditions, you can just type the two conditions, right? So let's say, for example, if country is India and year is 2020, let's say the result will be, I don't know, whatever it might be. Okay, let's say good. Okay, so if country is India and year is 2020, you will categorize this as good. Okay, let's say you are creating a new column where the result will be such that only when the two conditions are met, the result should be given. Now here, the two conditions should be met. So you should use the keyword and, right? AND. Now in DAX, the keyword and is nothing but the double ampersand operator here. Okay, double ampersand. Now coming to the double pipe operator. So the double pipe operator is the OR keyword. Okay, OR. So either the first condition should be satisfied or the second condition should be satisfied. So it is if country is India or the year is 2020, then you will see the result. Okay, this is the difference between double ampersand and the double pipe operator. The double ampersand operator is nothing but the AND, okay, where two or three conditions, whatever it might be, okay, where all the conditions should be met, then you will use the double ampersand symbol. If either of the conditions should be met, then you will use the double pipe operator. Okay, it is nothing but the OR operator, and double ampersand is the AND operator here. Okay, now coming to the IN operator. So what exactly is this IN operator? So in DAX language, IN operator refers to the values stored in a column. It means to check whether in a specific column one or many values is available. So for example, we had this country column, right? We had, because I don't think we have the country column. Oh yeah, we have the country column in dim region. Okay, so let's say you have the country column in the dim region table and you want to find out whether India, China, Germany, Australia, USA, UK, if these countries are present in the country column. Now, we can do that in multiple ways, right? We can go to the filter a section of that country column and we can search for these values. Now, you can do that in Power Query Editor, but how can you do that in DAX language? You can use the IN operator. So basically, you can specify the IN operator to check whether a particular value or multiple values are present in a specific column. So for example, whether in the country column, India, UK, Venezuela, Germany, Spain, if these countries are present or not. Okay, so IN operator is used to check whether in a specific column one or many values is available. Okay, that is the IN operator. Now we have already looked at the text concatenation operator, right? So in DAX, it is the same as M language. Okay, this single ampersand symbol here. Okay, the AND symbol is the same, or it does the same thing in both M language as well as in DAX language. Okay, so concatenation only works for text columns. Okay, it doesn't work for numeric columns. Okay, when I say concatenation, it only refers to the text columns, okay, or the columns that are of the data type text. Okay, now these are the different operators that you can use in DAX language. Okay, the arithmetic operators, comparison operators, logical, as well as text concatenation operators. Okay, now coming to the functions. Okay, why is the slide not working? Yeah, so these are the core functions that we are going to learn. Okay, now don't worry, we are not going to focus only on these functions here. These are just examples. Okay, in text function there are a lot there are a lot of other functions as well. If you refer to the DAX function here, and if you expand the text functions in the left tab, you can see that there are a lot of functions here. Okay, this is just an example here. Okay, so even in information function, is number is one of the functions that you can use. Okay, if you go back to the what is this function reference here in the information function, you can see that there are other functions as well. Okay. Now, obviously, we're not going to learn all of them, but the most commonly used or the most frequently used functions, or in other words, the core functions. Okay, the core functions we are going to learn, because as I said, there are over 250 functions, right? It will take, I think, easily a month to learn all of these. Okay. Now let us come back to the presentation. So these are the core functions that we are going to learn. Okay, the text function, information, logical, math, statistical, filter, and date and time. And in each of these functions, we are going to learn, not all of them, but the most frequently used. Okay. Now coming to the text function. So an example in text function is the concatenate function, right? Here, I am not using the ampersand symbol because there are only two words that I have to combine, right? So that is why instead of using an ampersand symbol, we are using the comma here. And how can we concatenate in the DAX function? If you want to concatenate two columns, then you will use the ampersand symbol or the AND operator, right? This one here, this symbol, the AND symbol. If you want to combine only two values, okay, if you want to combine only two values, you will use the comma here. Okay, so then the function would be concatenate. This is similar to Excel, right? In Excel also you use the same
Yeah,
functions.
yeah. I was just about to ask you that. Anyways, we are not even doing this in Excel most of the time. But why Power BI is supposed to be more sophisticated? But why do we need to understand all this syntax? Do we really need to write it, or it's not necessary?
Yeah, so in DAX, what you need to do is you have to write all these functions manually, right? Because it is a language, right? So you have to code. So I mean, by code, you mean you're not writing algorithms, but yeah, you have to write the formulas. Yeah, but I mean, text function is not that oftenly used. Most commonly used is basically the logical, math, and statistical
Yes,
functions.
logic only. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we are just going to touch on these concepts. That's it. Because most of us, most of our focus will be towards, logical, math, statistical, and filter. Okay, these four functions. But it is better to learn these as well. I mean, anyway, we are covering the fundamental concepts, so I can't leave this out. So that's why I've included it. Yeah. So in text, one of the examples is basically concatenate. Okay. So you specify the function, right? Similar to sum, right? Similar to sum, you specify the function here, and the function here is the concatenate function, where you are combining these two values, I love power and Power BI, and the result will be I love Power BI. Okay. Now, in the information function, in this example, we want to find out if 2020 is a number. So if you want to find out if a specific value is a number or not, you have to use the isNumber function. So after specifying the function, you specify the value inside round brackets. So obviously 2020 is a number, so the output will be true. Okay. Now comes the logical function. Now, one of the most commonly used logical function is the if condition, right? I mean, we have already looked at that, right? When we created the category column, we created the category column based on the if else conditions, right? That is the same thing here. Now here, we will not use the else clause explicitly, meaning we are not going to type the else term here in the formula. So here we are creating two categories, big and small. And the condition is that if population is greater than 1 lakh, then, so the first comma is basically for the then part here. Okay. Then categorize it as big. And the second comma is basically the else part. Okay, so if population is greater than 100,000, then categorize it as big, else categorize it as small. Okay, this is how you specify the if else condition in a DAX function. Okay, now coming to math functions. Now this is one of the examples. Okay, because in math functions, I think math and trig has various functions here, right? Because it includes trigonometry as well, your cos, sine, tan, all of these. Okay. I mean, obviously, we are not going to use all of these, right? Right. So basically, we'll be using, I think, only round here. Yeah. We'll also be using divide. Okay. Now, let us go back to the presentation. So one of the examples is, let's say you want to round off this particular value, 352.867. Right now, it has 3 decimal places. Now let's say you want to round it off to just 2 decimal places. So using the round function, first you specify the value, and then after the comma, you specify to how many decimal places you want to round off this particular number. And we want to round it off to 2 decimal places. So you specify the number 2, and the result will be 352.87. Okay. Then the statistical functions. So one of the most commonly used statistical function is the average, right? So the other functions are, I mean, right now I'm showing you, you can go back to this link and you can search on your own. Okay, so in statistical functions, yeah, you have these, chi-square, you can also do the chi-square test. You have the median, normal distribution. You can calculate the percentiles, right? We'll come back to this. We'll come back to this, right? You can calculate, you can take a sample, you can calculate the standard deviation, right? You can calculate the variance, right? All of these things you can do, okay, in statistical functions. Oh, I think they have changed it. I think they have changed the average. They have shifted the average from statistical to aggregate functions. Okay, there was no separate section for aggregation functions. I think they have updated it. Yeah, right now in aggregation functions, you can see the average, count, minimum, maximum, all of these things. Okay. So right now here, what we are doing, we are calculating the average of the population column. Okay. And here you can see the table reference also, right? So the fact population is the table reference and population is the column reference. Okay. Then comes the filter function, where you can filter a column for a specific value. Okay, so here we are filtering out the year column present in fact population table to only 2020. Okay, so we are also going to use the filter function. Okay, I think in tomorrow's class we are going to use all of these core DAX functions. Okay, then comes the date and time functions. Okay, so in date and time function, you can create a calendar. Okay, when I say calendar, don't think of these little boxes with January, February, March, and so on. No, it will be only one column which has the starting date and the ending date and all the values in between. So here we are creating a calendar. It means we are creating a new column. Okay, so don't think when I say the term calendar, don't think of your typical calendar, how you see in your mobile phones or in your tablets. No, this is basically we are creating one column with starting date 1st of January 2000 and ending date 31st of December 2020. So you will have each date as a row here. Okay, so the first row will be 1st of Jan 2000, then the second row will be 2nd of Jan 2000, third row will be 3rd of Jan 2000, and the last row will be 31st of December 2020. Okay, so this is also what you can do here in date and time functions. Okay, guys, just give me a minute. I'll have a sip of water. Yeah, so these are the different or rather that these are the DAX core functions that we are going to learn. Okay, text, information, logical, math, statistical, filter, and date and time. Now we are going to focus more towards these four. Okay, logical, math, statistical, and filter, because these are the most commonly used DAX functions on a daily basis, right? Because the other things not so much, right? Typically logical, math, and stat, right? These are the three most commonly used functions in DAX language, okay, in Power BI. Yeah. So what we can do for today is we can start with date and time, okay? Because for tomorrow's session, I'm going to share another example file. Okay. So how I shared an example file for learning many-to-many relationship, I'm going to share another file where we will learn, where we will calculate different columns. Okay, then we will come back to our data set and carry on. Okay, so what we can do for today is we can start with date and time function here. Okay, where we'll be creating a calendar. Okay, and then where we will learn a concept called as dot notation. Okay, so that we will do today and where we can end. Okay, so go back to our data set. Okay, go back to our data set. So DAX function, right now we have completed this, right, where we change the data type. We can click on close and apply now. Okay, we can click on close and apply. So DAX function is always used in the data view. Okay, now remember there are three views in Power BI, right? The report view, data view, and model view. Report view is used to build the visualizations. Model view is used to establish relationship between the queries, and data view is basically used to used to create custom columns, or used to create new columns or new measures using DAX language. Okay, so remember this DAX language is always used in the data view. Okay, okay, it's taking time. Okay, let it load. So DAX language is always used in the data view. Okay, excuse me.
Okay, Anaga, this
Huh.
AI enabled function in this Power BI, will that not do all these functions by default if we just orally comment this one? I mean, if we just give a comment on that.
You mean this natural language Q&A box, right? That is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So the natural language Q&A box is, yeah, you can also use that, but that is used in the dashboard, right? You can't use that in the data view.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to use it in the report view. So it is basically a part of data visualization, the natural language Q&A box.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can also use that. You're absolutely right. But yeah, we can also learn how to use the DAX language, because DAX language is one of the most important concepts in Power BI. The DAX functions, so to say. I mean, when we come to the data visualization or the Power View, we are going to learn that natural language Q&A box. Okay, yeah. So make sure to be in the data view. Okay, so right now we have these four tables here. Okay, now let us use the date and time function, that is the calendar and the date function, to create a calendar. Okay, to manually create a calendar. Now here, let us not use any of the existing tables. Okay, we are going to create a new column, but let us not use any of the new column, the tables that we already have, the existing tables. So rather we'll create a new table. Okay. Now here in the table tools section, or in the table tools menu, you have an option to create a new table. Okay. So let us do that. Okay. Click on the option that says new table. So here a new table has been created now, right? You can see in the fields pane, a new table has been created, and let us name this table as calendar. Okay, let us name this table as calendar. And the formula will be similar to what we saw in the presentation, right? We'll be using this particular formula, but we'll be changing the start date and the end date. We'll take only 2022 in consideration. Okay. So here first, we specified the name of the table, right? Or basically the name of the formula here. Okay. Now the formula will be calendar. Now, as soon as I do that, basically you will get these options here, right? All the formulas or all the functions that have the letters CAL. Okay, so you can select the calendar, and now you have to specify the start date and end date. So to specify the start date, you use the date function. Okay, date. Now you specify the date in the form of year, month, and day. Okay, this is the format that Power BI uses. Okay, year, month, and day using comma in between. Okay, so the year will be 2022, comma. Now you can see the month is highlighted right now, right? So this is, I think this is also similar in Excel or any other platform, where it is telling you which part of the formula you have to specify. Here, since month is highlighted here, we have to specify the month part. Okay, so it will be January, that is 01, comma, day is again 1st of Jan. So it is 01 again. Now you can close the bracket. Then you specify the comma and you specify the end date here. Okay, now you again use the date function, then specify the end date here. Okay, year will be 2022, comma, month will be December, that is 12, and day will be 31. Then you can close the bracket and again close the bracket. Okay. So how many ever, so if you have two open brackets, you should have two closing brackets. So basically, how many ever open brackets you have, the same number of closing brackets you should have in your formula. Okay. Now you can press enter on the keyboard. So now a column has been created called as date because we have used the date function, right, for the end date and start date. So a date column or a column which is named date has been created. And this is the format it provides, right? DD, MM, YY, YY. Now, even though we specified it in YY, MM, DD format, it shows you in this particular format. Okay, where we also have the time data as well, right? Hours, minutes, and seconds. Now, let's say I don't want this particular hours, minutes, and seconds format here. I only want to see the date format. So how can you change that? So basically, you can select the date column. Okay, you can select the date column. And once you select a particular column, the column tools option or the column tools menu will be visible. And here you can see that there is a format section here, right? You can select any format you are comfortable with, or it depends on your requirement. Now I am going to select this particular date format here. Okay, the long date format, 14 March 2001. So that this is how you can change the format of a date column. This is similar to Excel, right? I'm sure most of you must have done this, right? This is very, very common. Okay. So this is basically how you can create a calendar, right? So basically where you have 1st of Jan 2022 till 31st of December 2022. You can also expand the view a little bit. Yeah. So right now we have 365 rows, right? Because there are 365 days in 2022. Okay. So this is basically how you can create a calendar and also change the format of the date data type here. Okay, you can also rename this column, right, to whatever you want. Okay. Let us do one thing, guys. Okay, let us stop for today. And in tomorrow's session, we will learn